Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we are looking at a little, what do we got? 4 games here on a Tuesday night in the NBA, Nate. In this one, we're taking a look at the Bulls and the Brooklyn Nets. Nets on a back-to-back after finally getting their second win of the season. Apparently, they play each and every night of the season as well, so we are going to continue to talk about them. Want to make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along with us as we bring you these game videos and our player props video each and every weekday of this regular season. Also have our great odds finder tool on thelines.com. That's where you can go ahead and make sure you are shopping all of those lines across U.S. sportsbooks to the best of your ability. Nate, let's go ahead and jump into these lines here and talk Bulls and Nets.
Yeah, to be exact, this is the 6th game in a week here for the Nets, or 5th game in a week. Excuse me. I mean, they almost are playing every night though. And on a back-to-back situation, they are -1.5 right now at home. That total shrunk a little bit to 230. I haven't heard anything in terms of Kyrie or KD sitting, but that's a possibility here. Zach LaVine is expected to go for the Bulls and then sit tomorrow as he manages his knee. Second game here, Warriors are +1 at Heat. They just beat the Heat at home, but different story in Miami. Steph Curry is good to go with that neck issue. Magic +2.5 at the Thunder. And then the other game we break down, right now the Wolves are +3.5 at the Suns, who are expected to be without DeAndre Ayton. But we really like the Suns at a shrinking spread there. I think there's some great value. But looking at the Nets on a back-to-back here, they held out Ben Simmons last night. I don't know if it was kind of the same thing that the Lakers did with Russ Westbrook, was like let's maybe see if we play better without him. And they got a win. I mean, granted, it was against the Pacers, but it really freed up Nick Claxton to be that rim runner, to live in the dunker spot and get 19 points. Seth Curry also held out after really struggling in his debut. And Utah Watanabe played 22 minutes, was a -16, actually got the game-winning stop on Halliburton, in which he just fouled the shit out of him, and it wasn't called. So, I mean, he's terrible. He had a -16 rating. Just had to throw that out there but the back-to-backs last year as home favorites, they were 5-29 against the spread. On short rest, it's really a really short rest when you look at the entire week here. It's really hard to trust them. Last year, they were 4-9-1 against the spread on back. And you asked me to repeat that because it's so stark. 5-29 as home favorites here. Not really a spread. Just thought it was kind of ridiculous that was not called. Look, the Nets just still did cover, so did not screw our pick in any way. We're just talking about the Bulls winning here. I think I definitely lean that way. We talked again and again the last few videos for the Nets that they can't get a rebound. They won the rebounding battle by 1 against the Pacers, who only played Miles Turner 20 minutes. Look, I would be all over the Nick Vucevic props here when we get them up. I'm looking at DeMar DeRozan as well once we get those up because, the Nets are just a sieve down low, worst defensive rating right now, and they're not going to win the rebounding battle here. DeRozan is excellent in clutch time. The Bulls just beat the Celtics, taking advantage of short rest for those Celtics. And, if the Celtics are an excellent offensive team that's underachieving defensively right now, the Nets are a two-man offensive team that is never going to be good on defense this year, it appears. So I think if it's the same situation, you got to like the Bulls to pull out the win here. And I kind of lean towards the over as long as KD and Kyrie are in. I think if you can get it to keep dropping a little bit, you should be all over that. Look, the Bulls have averaged 233 in their last 4 games here. They're playing with more pace, and they're averaging 119 on their own in that span. So, the Nets are going to come with the points. So I think the over is a good play as well.
Yeah, the over scares me a bit when you look at the under for the Nets when they're on no rest. I think there's good reason for it. That's the only reason. I agree that from maybe a quick bird's eye view, you go 230. I mean, it's 230. It's fluctuating between 230 and 232 right now. Is that total? The Nets don't play defense. There's no D in their name, so I can't make a funny pun about how they don't have any D. But like you said, already second worst defensive rating at this point. They actually somehow got a little bit worse in rebounding last night, despite winning. As we look at their stats on back-to-back nights, still, their defensive rating got a bit worse. Still the third worst net rating in the league, and the recipe for beating this team is shoot threes and really, just let KD and Kyrie eat and just allow nobody else. And that's really, when the Pacers made it was a total game of runs for the Nets, and I think it's going to continue to be for most of this season. In that game against the Pacers last night, runs. They're up 17, they're up 4. They're up, 20 again, they're up 4. So, you don't trust them, and it's obvious what's happening. KD, Kyrie aren't on the floor to just score buckets every single time down for them, and take all of their shots. There's no offense without those two guys. There's no ball movement. There's a lot of standing in the corners and watching in your turn, my turn, and that leads to bottom league in unassisted field goals. It leads to, once again, both these teams being in the top 3 in percentage of their points off of the mid range from 2-point. When you have guys like Kyrie, KD, and then DeMar, that's going to be how you score a lot of your points when those guys all have the highest usage on your team. But if you can't defend the 3 like the Nets can, not that the Bulls are necessarily shooting the most threes and making a ton of them, but they have some pretty good percentages from their guys that are shooting anywhere from like 3 to 7 a game. We're talking about Zach LaVine, Ayo Dosunmu, Goran, Vooch, and actually leave Vooch out of it, but all those guys I just said are shooting 45% from 3. Vooch is still shooting a nice 47 or 37% himself. So I just think there's too many opportunities for this Bulls team to take advantage of a Nets porous wing defense and wing everything. And that just feels like it's like the strong middle class of the Nets is just not there. There is no strong middle class. There's just top tier guys, and then there's some guys that you're using to plug holes when you don't. It's not like you have a squad that's good enough that you can just plug a Nick Claxton in and not expect that to hurt you in certain ways. I mean, I don't want to pick on him too much. He's played decently well, but he's not the guy that you need in the center for them if you're going to play the type of ball that they're going to play. I have a lot of thoughts about that for the Nets in terms of the style of play that they have after watching them twice already this season for the entire game. But yeah, we'll see what happens with Simmons. I'm scared to touch the total. I'm going to take Chicago, and I'm going to feel pretty good about it because, even last year when these two teams played, the Nets needed a Kyrie, Harden, KD fest, if you will, in order to even beat this team. And they won that game 138-112 in classic Harden, Kyrie, KD era Nets basketball, which was super short-lived, but that was what it was. It's not the same team anymore. They don't even have the same. I hate to say it, but like Blake Griffin was at least somewhat decent for them down low defensively compared to what they have this season. I just continue not to like it. There was no way they were going to beat the Pacers by 9 last night, and I feel pretty good about taking Chicago at plus money, and might as well just hit that money line at this point.
Yeah, no Bruce Brown is who I wanted to interject there as a key role player. But yeah, there's several guys out. Like we said, Seth Curry not healthy yet. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right that the total's a little concerning because the Bulls' path to victory might be containing Kyrie and KD. And it's interesting the matchups that they have to throw at them with Caruso and Kyrie. First of all, he wasn't active for any of their matchups with the Nets last year. And Kyrie's last 3 games against the Lakers with Caruso active, 18 points per game, a 98 offensive rating. Granted, Caruso a little better rim protection behind him there, but that's some good individual defense from him when he was on there. And Pat Williams really just locking in on that end of the floor, not playing offense at all. So he can at least give KD some trouble here with the guys on a back-to-back. Asked to carry such a huge load once again last night, combined for over 60. The only path to victory for the Nets. And then the Bulls actually do have a big 3 with Vooch, LaVine and DeRozan, right? They actually have 3 guys that can give you 20 plus and probably will against this poor defense. So I think it's pretty confident on the money line here. It's right now just plus 102. I think that's where you lean. And you can look at the total if you want, but I would rather go money line and then look at props for those 2 most confident guys, DeRozan and Vucevic.
Yeah, I'm with it. Especially if LaVine doesn't play, I think it's likely that he does. But I think the other reason, I prefer an under. Yeah, I don't trust the Nets if those 2 guys don't score close to 70 points for them to get 115 or so to get us close to our total there. And then I really don't really trust a lot of the supporting cast on offense outside of Goran and Dosunmu right now, outside of those big three, like you said, Caruso, Pat Williams, Kobe White, the three main guys that need to come in and play, a supporter role and potentially get some points for these guys. Not really showing up. Kobe White had a few flashes at the beginning of the season where we thought maybe he was going to be the player we thought he was, right back down to his 38% from the field, 29% from three. So there's just not a lot to love in terms of this being an offensive explosion, in my opinion. Neither of these teams also plays fast enough to feel good if they're not super efficient on offense. But like you said, I'm sticking with a Bulls and DeMar, fan favorite and definitely friend of the show, DeMar DeRozan, and his props as he was super successful for us last season. So
the game we get to here right now, Wolves are plus 3.5 at the Suns. The total's 227. It opened at +5 for the Wolves, and I don't really understand why the Wolves are picking up steam here. They have been decidedly average here with Rudy Gobert added to the fold. 15th in points per game and 15th in points allowed after being the highest scoring team in the league last year, right? So the offense is not getting any better with that spacing. We'll talk about the defense in a second, but those average numbers come against what might be the softest schedule in the league. The Thunder twice, the Spurs 3 times. They lost 2 of those, the Jazz and then the Lakers. So they have not played what you would consider a playoff team at this point. And last year when they were underdogs, they were 9-19 on the road. They were 15-28 straight up in general, and with a -5 margin of victory. And then the Suns, they didn't necessarily cover a lot at home, 24-24 against the spread because those spreads were huge. But they were 41-10 straight up since the start of last year, and the average margin is 8.5 points. So at +3.5 and -3.5, if you're looking for the Suns' perspective, I feel very confident, especially when you look at the recent history against Minnesota. They've won 7 of their last 8. They've won by double digits in 3 of their last 4 at home. And the one loss you look at just like screams outlier. And Cat, 42 and 41 points, combined 55% field goal shooting. The Suns committed 22 turnovers. They never do that. They sent the Wolves to the line 35 times, and then they've won 4 straight since against the Wolves, committing just 14 turnovers, sending them to the line 21 times. So they've obviously shored that up. And even in that loss, Josh, they shot 42% from 3, and they won the rebounding battle. And, the Wolves, what are they doing well with Gobert? They're keeping people off the free throw line. Whoop-de-doo, that's not the Suns' game. They don't care about getting the free throw line. They're still allowing the most assists per game. That's a big problem against the most efficient team in basketball. Still allowing the second most three-point attempts. And, it's kind of the knock on Gobert is that, you can play him off the floor but that's not really the case. What the situation is if you go 4 out against the Gobert-led defense and those 4 defenders can't keep anybody in front of them, then you're going to get good shots. You're going to get them in rotation. And that's exactly what we saw with the Jazz in that Clippers series a couple years ago. And that's what we're seeing now with the Wolves giving up a very good shot diet. And I absolutely trust Monty Williams and CP3 and Booker to get great shots here tonight. I think the Suns could lead wire to wire here and potentially just blow out another team. I mean, they've blown out 4 straight opponents, so why not?
Why not? Indeed, they're back on their bullshit, as we say. The Phoenix Suns just mirroring what they did last year. People thought Jay Crowder was really important, and I'm sure he was. Other guys are stepping up already for them. Same exact concept as last season. Just be in the top 4 in both offensive and defensive rating. What could possibly go wrong? Sounds easy, but it's just discipline. Like you said, if the Minnesota is going to win this game, it's going to be because they just muck it up and just make it this messy, gross thing. Similar to how when you're an underdog in football, you're really just looking for that weird turnover game. You want to mess it up, right, and get out of the norm. And I think that's what Minnesota is going to try to do. I mean, they're already in the top 3 or 4 in terms of pace this season. Also helps that they're playing the Spurs, who continue to play at that pace as well. It seems they play them once a week at this point. So those 2 teams usually playing at about 104 pace when they match up. That's what they want to do here. And Phoenix, it's obviously just polar opposites for them, right? They're happy to play at a much slower pace as they continue to do this season as they did last season. I mean, it's about average for the league, or bottom half, if you will, but it's still it's still just slow compared to Minnesota, right? I mean, Phoenix playing at like a 99 pace is still like pretty normal in the NBA. It's not like they're playing super slow. It's just very methodical. You look at, once again, the fourth quarter and clutch time and what they do. And there's a couple teams with a higher net rating than them. And that's one of them is San Antonio, because they keep playing Minnesota and having clutch time minutes and just destroying them once they get to the fourth quarter. You've seen sort of the same sort of like fluctuation in the games when in Minnesota's games in a lot of ways, come out slow, maybe try to come back with some, really good offense when it comes together for a few possessions, and then right back into the second half with finding deficits and then really getting into the fourth quarter and not playing good basketball. So the fact that teams are also scoring so many second chance points against them is absolutely wild. I mean, Minnesota's in the top 10 in terms of their second chance points and opportunities, but right, how are they the worst team in terms of giving up opponents second chance points when you just picked up Rudy Gobert for this exact reason, right? And it's a lot of spacing. As you mentioned, the spacing is definitely messing them up on offense. It also seems to be messing them up on defense. Rudy Gobert is being pulled out above the foul line a lot more than he wants to. They're bottom, well, they're in the, right in smack dab in the middle of the league in terms of allowing points in the paint. So it's just all the things that they were hoping to get better at, they didn't. And all the things that they were doing well last year, they've gotten worse at because Rudy Gobert comes in and mucks up their spacing. So I took an under on this team's total before the season started. I think the Ant Edwards sort of issue that was a little bit swept under the rug, but man, it seems to have impacted him a lot, that in the state of Georgia, where he's from, he goes viral on a video, having some sort of a few slurs, if you will, in a way. It wasn't the worst thing that's ever been said, but it was clearly homophobic. And it's something that a lot of people have said to this point, still seems to be affecting him. The main thing for me in his game seems to be he's not attacking, and there seems to be a lack of confidence, and he's not getting to the rim. And it's too high of a percentage of his shots are still coming from 3-point and even the mid range right now. And he's a young dude who's more athletic than pretty much everybody on the floor as soon as he steps on it. So you really want to see him make that kind of turnaround there for them. But yeah, for me, there's just I'm not as concerned with Ayton not playing all the things that they need their center to do. Really, Phoenix is mostly just defend and keep big guys out of the paint. Enter Bismack Biyombo. Jock Landale has been playing absolutely out of his mind for someone who you did just kind of came out of nowhere as a reserve guy last year and is now hitting threes and is a really nice pick and pop partner for CP3 and is not a full liability on defense, so you can keep him on the floor. Without Ayton in the last two seasons, they're 19-6. It's pretty much the same percentage as their 51-13 when he is on the floor. So I'm really not concerned about that being if that's a reason that people are money's coming in on Minnesota. That's not going to stop me from betting on Phoenix.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing you would like from Ayton is when you say pull Gobert out to the free throw line is a good mid-range shooter, and Biyombo is certainly not that. Landale has not yet found the range in the NBA, but like I said, I mean, their drive and kick game is going to be on point, and Monty Williams obviously knows what he has in his team. This is the reigning coach of the year, and the Wolves, I mean, whether it's coaching or whether it's leadership and the general malaise that they're in, I mean, they've been the worst third quarter team in the NBA in terms of scoring, second worst in terms of defense. Their numbers in the fourth quarter are good, but like you said, like skewed by playing teams like the Spurs, who were actually way, way better than them in the clutch. And if the Spurs are going to destroy you in the clutch, what about the most clutch team of all time last season? Now both guys still healthy, and they're just rolling. Like you said, 19 net rating, shooting over 50% from the floor, diming up at the highest rate, best assist to turnover ratio. And you go up against a team that allows the most assists per game. And Ant, like you said, struggling with his confidence. I mean, it's going to hurt your confidence to go up against Mikal Bridges, who's just maybe the best perimeter defender in the league. And since that explosion, 4 games since, Ant's averaging 16.5 points on 33% shooting against Mikal and the Suns. So I don't really see a path to victory for the Wolves if Anthony Edwards is not going off to match points with those two dynamic guards on the Suns.
Yeah, 100%. I think you can feel pretty good about some points for and some stats for both those guys as well in terms of Chris Paul and Devin Booker, both of whom do increase their usage a bit. Not surprisingly, when Ayton is not in the game at this point, I do think it's a bit of a detriment to them. Obviously, not having that dude to be able to shoot, the big guy to be able to shoot and score from beyond the foul line. But still, once again, plenty happy to ride the duo of Chris Paul and Devin Booker in this one. So Nate, let's go ahead and jump into your first play a prop for tonight.
Yeah, it's up just in the nick of time here as we record at around 11 a.m. Eastern time, was waiting on DeMar DeRozan, kind of projected 26.5 points for the prop, and it's 25.5. It's actually 24.5 at DraftKings with negative 125 odds there, but I would go ahead and take the better juice for 25 points. I think you can look at FanDuel, those awesome player performance doubles, 25 plus in a win at plus 225. Might as well do that rather than the even money line here for the Bulls. They're almost certainly going to get a nice game from DeMar, and 30 points in a win is plus 430. But you look at the recent results against the Nets, and the last game they played was that rare Kyrie, wow, I keep twisting on my tongue there. Kyrie, KD, and James Harden game. I think they played like 9 games together all last year, and they blew out the Bulls. But then prior to that, 2 close games, 2 Bulls wins. DeMar, 29 points, 32% usage rate. DeMar, 28 points, 32% usage rate. And that includes, Zach LaVine going off for 31 with a high usage rate in one of those. That also includes a runaway win, actually, for the Bulls in the fourth quarter. So they didn't even need DeMar to keep scoring. And he was the 3rd best scorer in clutch time by points per game, the most efficient scorer in clutch time last season, and the MVP of our player prop show. So, and you also look at what he did on the road. Last season, a higher usage rate, 32%, again, that number, and 50% from the floor, averaging 27.5. This season, he's averaging 34 in 3 road games. But the usage rate is, again, what we come back to, 32%. You love that consistency. You love a guy who can just get his shot in the mid-range whenever he wants. And he's facing the worst defense in the league on a back-to-back. I mean, what else? What is there not to like about player props MVP here?
100%. You're never going to hear me say a bad word about that man, and I will always support picking him. I mean, look, we're still by what, December, January, probably January of last season, we were already seeing DeMar props at like 30.5 when he was scoring 30 a game, like whatever, 100 times in a row last year, whatever he did. So especially against this just porous defense, man, I'm happy to take his prop tonight against the Nets. Maybe we'll have a little bit better luck than Mr. Halliburton, who wasn't really able to get it fully going last night, despite picking the game correctly. So let's move on to another game here that it's a little bit tough to pick. It's the Warriors in Miami. I do lean Miami, but I super lean Jimmy Butler. 30.5 points and rebounds is nice. That's minus 110 at FanDuel. If you want to get the extra assists in there, it's another 5. So it's 35.5 PRA for pretty much similar odds there for Jimmy. He plays well against this team, against the Dubs. The last 6 he's played against them, about 21 a game, 7.5 boards, 6.5 assists, an individual offensive rating about 126. And that's exactly what he did last week, despite the fact that Steph just kind of took over once the end of the third quarter came around and it became the Steph show. Then it wasn't really much that Miami could do. There's few teams in the NBA that have a sort of response when Steph goes lights out like he did in that game. But still, he had Jimmy did 27, 6, and 8 assists on 8 of 13 shooting. And they're back home. He plays much better at home. 23 points a game are his splits so far, with a 25% usage rate at home. Slightly lower usage rate and only 19 points a game when he's on the road. You look at last year, similarly, 22 points, 6 boards, 6 assists. He would continue that usage rate about 27%. It's obvious that like when they get on the road, and a lot of those role players and shooters that are on this team that are not playing at home, not that there's a huge raucous crowd in Miami all the time, but at any rate, they're still at home, where you expect your role players to play better. And that's where Jimmy's usage rate is sort of a little bit, more. But at this point, for him, it's just Warriors defense is just garbage, man. It's just, I haven't seen anything from it to make me feel like they could really stop a nosebleed at this point, allowing, and really also just to shooting guards in general. You see Klay Thompson, not really quite the same dude, not able to move quite as fast laterally. Opposing shooting guards they're allowing the 5th most rebounds per game, the 4th most assists per game, and you got to expect Jimmy to get his points as well. With the Warriors' lack of defense, pretty much on on every area of the floor, down low and outside.
Yeah, I expect him to completely fill up the stat sheet tonight, and that's why I'm actually intrigued by some of these other props. Rebounds and assists at just 11.5, and that's why it's minus 125 to the over. But I think you could hammer that with some confidence. I mean, Jimmy's a guy who's going to go 7 and 7 more times than not. He's like the new big game James. I mean, if a good team is coming into his house, like, he's going to bring it in all aspects. And steals and blocks, that's plus 140 for 3 steals and blocks. He had 6 steals in Golden State. I believe he had like 6 steals against the Blazers when they were undefeated, and he brought it there. So I would hammer both of those, as well as the overall PRA, which can be a little dicier because sometimes he doesn't necessarily look for his offense. He just looks to lead on both ends of the floor. I'm going under here with Anthony Edwards, under last night with Trae Young, hella under. Hopefully we can keep that rolling. And maybe it's because the Suns blow out the Wolves. I don't know, but I think even if he's out there, I'm looking under 26.5 points and assists for Edwards. I don't think he's going to – he hasn't really taken a step forward as a playmaker. Like, that's the first criticism for sure. What he's averaging this year is about 3 assists per game. And they've played, like I said, the worst teams in the NBA almost. I mean, there's just certainly not any winning teams. And now he goes up against Mikal Bridges, who – since he gave him a 41 piece, and that was the only time the Wolves beat the Suns in 8 meetings, he's averaging 16.5 points. He's shooting 33% from the floor. You even include that 41-point performance. He's averaging 22 points with his prop at 22.5, shooting under 38%, and he's a minus 26 against the Suns. The Suns, they don't allow assists. They're the second best team, allowing under 20 per game to an entire team. So I don't expect Edwards, who plays off the ball next to D'Lo, to get much there. I mean, I guess what I'm harping on is maybe you want plus 104 on under 3.5 assists, because he is a guy that can get you 25, 2 and 2 routinely. And that's why I actually talked Josh out of drafting him in fantasy, because that's pretty much what he's going to get you. He's not going to be around the box score monster. And so instead, Josh is sitting with Jimmy Butler, Mr. 5 stat category, and he's rolling Mo's fantasy league. And that's the last time I swear we're going to mention Jay Boogie's fantasy team here.
I am not committed to that. You may not be, but I am not committing to not referencing my fantasy team moving forward. But you are correct that I did forego Ant for that exact reason. And I do love, as you were talking, I was like, so you just want us to take under his assists, right? Because that's what we're saying here. Like you said, he could randomly just go off, and he's one of those guys that doesn't matter once he starts feeling himself. If he's confident like that, whatever. I don't want to, bet on him to score less than 23 points necessarily, but I'll take the points plus assists. I'll really just take the assists if I'm getting plus money on that one. But I do agree that this is a game that's not tailored for him to be super successful. So not feeling too bad about unders of any kind for Mr. Edwards right now. I'm going to finish us off here with Lou Dort, a guy that I wish we had already been speaking about. He's having a really nice season so far, Nate. And, I love what the Thunder are doing for sure. I've been loving it. I think they're actually going to be trying to win this year, as they so far have, already beating the Clippers twice. But Dort is at 14.5 points, which is about what he's averaging on the season right now. But this Magic team that they're playing against tonight, this is a team that isn't suited to defend Lou Dort, who stands at 6'4", 6'5", and this team is starting 5 7-footers, or at least 4 7-footers, or 4 dudes that are 6'10" plus, right?
4 dudes and Terrence Ross, who's not really a lights out defender. Yeah.
No, definitely not a lights out defender. Allowing the second highest assist to turnover ratio are the Magic, because they've got, there's nobody really suited to guard these guards. Allowing the 4th most 3-point attempts. Shooting guards are getting this, the second most assists per game against them, which is where Lou is playing. You can get 16.5 points and assists. It's just another 2 assists to get Lou there. I'm happy with the points, honestly, because I think, in his last 15, 19 points a game, 5 boards, 2.5 assists or so. So it's really, for me with him, I think it's when this team is cooking, it's the ball in Shea's hand and Lou Dort playing off of that and getting some really nice looks from 3. He's got about a 25% usage rate in 34 minutes over the last 15, which is great, because a lot of times last year you were worried that if you picked a Lou Dort prop, he was going to come out really early. Same thing with Shea. It does seem like they're trying to win this year a little bit more. But yeah, even, with those 34 minutes, basically his per 36 this season is well above, these props. And even in his career, it's the same. So I think as long as he's getting the minutes, which is what we always harp on with this team, picking any OKC Thunder player, are they getting the minutes? Pretty much we know Josh Giddey's getting the minutes. Is everybody else? If the answer is yes, then let's go ahead and take the over. And that's where we're at with Dort against a pretty bad Orlando team in terms of their defensive ability.
Yeah, that's the key, right? Is just is he active? I haven't seen too much of the Thunder playing Dort and then yanking him because he's playing too well. It's just that they make up an injury usually in the second half of the season. And what we saw last year is, they might try the first half and then they'll just start, benching those guys and playing for draft picks here. But when he's out there, very productive last year, 19 points per 36 minutes. So if he's going to get that amount of time against a Magic team that, again, you have mismatches all over the floor because they just want to play their bigs, then he should roll. And his prop is just so much lower than SGA at 27.5 points. I mean, both those guys should have nice games, but I would much rather take Dort here.
I feel it. Yeah, I'm not scared of either prop, to be honest, even the 27.5, but it's a bit high for SGA, and you get a little bit more value with Luke Dort. I'm just happy they're playing their guys, man. It's like it's time to start winning. You've got Chet Holmgren coming back next season. That's basically like a top draft pick. So why not start to see what you have in these guys? And I think that's what they're finally starting to do. And they're rolling a bit. So yeah, I'm happy with the Dort pick there too. But that is all the time we have for you guys in this one. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along with us as we bring you these game lines and these player props that we like to stay wicked hot with you guys on the rest of this week. And until we see you next, happy betting.